Out of 37 million YouTube channels, people turn to the good voice guy for their entertainment. This is N.E.W.S.
Hello, my friends. So I recently came across this article from Voice of America News, and it says Russia clamps down on Twitter. Now, this was published on March 10th of 2021. It states, from Moscow, Russia's internet regulatory body, N.E.W.S, announced it had slowed down Twitter's ability to function in Russia effective Wednesday. Part of what authorities said was an initial penalty for American social media platforms' failure to delete illegal content inside the country. According to a statement posted on N.E.W.'s website, 100% of mobile devices and 50% of stationary devices using Twitter would face a disruption in service in an effort to protect Russian citizens. Of course, it's all about the citizens, not about protecting narratives or anything like that. The mechanism envisions slowing down the transfer of photo and video content without any limitations on text messages. Users will be able to exchange messages freely, N.E.W.S official Vadim Stobotin later clarified in comments to reporters. Stobotin added the restrictions would remain in place until Twitter complied with the request to remove offending content. Failure to do so, added Stobotin, could lead to a full blockage of Twitter inside the country. In its statement, N.E.W. said Twitter had failed to remove 3,168 tweets promoting drug use, child pornography, and teenage suicide, and ignored over 28,000 initial and repeated requests to address content violations. See, that actually makes sense. Twitter is garbage, and we know they love their CP, but you have to look at it under the fact that Twitter loves it so much, they're going to ignore sovereign nations and get what they want. Now, I also believe that this is going to have some political stuff wrapped up in it because, hey, guess what? It's Russia. Anyway, there was no immediate comment from Twitter about the new restrictions. I'm not surprised by this. Honestly, I'm not. Nobody has any desire to block anything, said Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov when asked about the issue in his daily call with journalists. But taking measures that force the company to fulfill our laws is completely justifiable. Yes, President Vladimir Putin had criticized the internet for preying on Russian youth during the meeting with young volunteers last week. We all unfortunately know what the internet is and how it is used to spread entirely unacceptable content, said Putin, who argued the web should be bound by moral laws. Whose moral laws? Oh, of course, his. How did the election go, by the way? Now you have to ask yourself, which election am I talking about? Anyway, Kremlin RU goes dark. The moves against Twitter were quickly followed by news that a series of key Russian government websites, including the Kremlin's main portal, were inaccessible to users. Other state websites that appeared to experience problems included the Interior Ministry, Russia's Federal Council and Duma, the Ministry of Economic Development, and even N.E.W, the internet governing body that announced penalties against Twitter to begin with. Russia's Ministry of Digital Development later clarified that the problems had nothing to do with actions against Twitter, but were caused by technical issues inside the state service provider Rostelecom. Yet, it was an explanation that did little to tame the speculation that something larger was unfolding online. Now, guys, you got to cut them some slack, okay? They just updated to Windows 95, and they happened to base their entire internet off of the base code for Internet Explorer. So you have to just give them some time to catch up. I mean, they have infrastructure problems because, I mean, look how all the Cold War stuff went for them. The coming cyber war? The move against Twitter marked the latest in a simmering battle between Russia's government and global tech companies. The Kremlin has alleged that Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube are platforms that promote content supportive of Russia's opposition while penalizing Russian state media content. I would say that these companies don't like anybody that doesn't agree with them directly. Earlier this month, Russia announced it was suing Twitter and 4 other global tech companies for failing to delete posts expressing support for their protests against the imprisonment of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Artem Kozylyuk of the internet rights advocacy group Roskomsvoboda called the government's concerns about Twitter's impact on the morality of Russian youth nothing more than a cover. Pretty much everything is a cover in Russia, man. Unless, of course, you're in the gulag. But then, at least you still get the state-sponsored vodka. The real goal is to force Western social media companies to limit access to political content. Anything to do with calling people out to protest or visit an opposition website. Kozylyuk told the VOA, if Twitter or any other companies complied, they'd find the objections of the Russian authorities suddenly disappear. Well, yeah, that is usually what compliance gets you. Compliance is often rewarded. Meanwhile, problems with Russian government websites follow reports the Biden administration was preparing a cyber response, both overt and covert, to what it insists is the Kremlin's responsibility for the massive SolarWinds hack of U.S. government agency websites in 2020. Concerns over cyber attacks and their fallout have been a contentious aspect of the U.S.-Russian relationship since the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign, when the U.S. accused Russia of using cyber tools to interfere in the race. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to learn all of the English words. It's very hard. In 2019, Russia passed a law in defense of a sovereign internet, a measure that includes a kill switch intended to isolate Russian infrastructure from the World Wide Web if attacked. They're going to cut off their only means of propaganda because most of their own people don't even have the internet in the first place. Let's be real. I mean, unless you're in Moscow, it's not going. You're like, oh, look at me! I'm playing Snake on my little Nokia 30 blah. Snake. It's the highest grossing game in Russia right now. Thank you. Probably not, because nobody has any money. Anyway, I'm not going to finish this, but I do think I'm going to jump down to the bottom, and I'm going to show you this one here. This is Andrei Soldatov, a Russian cybersecurity expert. He says Russia's slowing down of Twitter caused the outage of government websites. What was meant to be partly a nationwide test of the sovereign Runet infrastructure, partly a warning to global platforms, and partly a soothing message to Putin getting emotional, failed on all fronts. Well, let's think about your system of government real fast. Communism always fails, so no matter what you try to do, it's going to fail. Second off, you need to update from 1990s. Windows 95 really won't get you very far. You need to at least go up to 10. Just because 95 is a bigger number, that does not mean that you are actually going to get any better than 10 right now. So, I'm just saying, you should probably Try to update the system. You guys are supposed to be super spies. Where the hell are you stealing your technology from right now? Sesame Street? I mean, come on, man. This is garbage. You'd think everybody's like, oh, the Russians are going to get us. And I'm like, man, you don't understand Russians if you really think that, bro. You really don't, bro. I mean, come on. Anyway, I would like to point out that Russia cracked their own websites when they were trying to stop access to Twitter. I hate Twitter. They're garbage. Honestly. They're just a big old bag of hoy. And for those of you who don't know what hoy is, it's a Russian word that means dick. That's why you say poshilno hoy. Or, instead, I could say увидимся позже, which means see you later, or odechgodnia, which means have a wonderful day.
This has been N.E.W.S. If you have enjoyed this content, please consider donating $5 to TalksALot's PayPal. Links are in the description.